Well, good morning, everybody. Danny back from Deep South Homestead. Thought I'd take a break this morning and shoot porch time while I'm taking my break. I can't do a whole lot because of what's going on with my heart, but I am getting out trying to do a little bit. And it's starting to get warm, so I'm fixing to have to shut it down. But God's been good. We got a little rain this past week. For one day, we got 2¼ inches rain in one day. Part of it at night and part of it late in the evening. Didn't really put much water in the pond, maybe an inch or so in the pond, but it watered the gardens. That was the main thing. It gave our fruit trees and our grass and the gardens and stuff like that some water, and boy was we thankful. Man, it makes all the difference in the world, just that little bit of rain that we got. Now, a lot of people go, 2¼ that's a lot of rain. Well, not for the Deep South. We're used to a lot more rain than that. But then comes the heat, and we've had relentless heat. It has just been, Wanda and I went back through my records and looked this past week. We're on day 49 of over 100-degree heat index. Anywhere from 101 to 115 and 16 heat indexes for those almost 50 days in a row. And when you have no rain hardly and you get that kind of heat indexes, it's really sapping the ground pretty good. Now, I haven't mowed the grass or anything like that. It looks horrible. And I know when y'all probably see some of our videos and see the way the grass looks and everything, you think, man, don't they ever cut grass? But guys, I'm just not going to cut the grass. I mean, unless I know there's a big system moving in here that's going to put a lot of rain, and I'm pretty sure it's going to put some rain in here, I'm just not going to mow it, because I did that before this last spell we had that was really, really severe, and most of our grass died, and lots of stuff just died. Some of the trees died, I mean, because I cut the grass low around the trees and tried to clean everything up, and it was worse. I should have left it alone. But I've gotten a lot of emails and a lot of comments about people. We talking about my Danny corn. Now, my Danny corn was luscious and green. I mean, it was 12, 14 feet tall. It was growing beautiful. And within a couple of days, it went from beautiful dark green to drying up and just dying. But that wasn't the real kicker. See, I went back and we've re-looked at this whole thing, trying to figure out what really happened. And a lot of y'all have sent me emails and comments, like I was mentioning, saying, my corn tousled, but it never put no ears on. That's exactly what happened to my Danny corn. It tousled out beautiful, but it never put no ears on. Now, why did the corn, and I'm talking about lots of people are sending me messages saying, my corn tousled, but it didn't put no ears on. What's up? What did I do wrong? Guys, it's the same thing happened to me. I'm not really sure why it didn't put any ears on. Because mine was beautiful and green. I mean, going like it was on steroids. And within a couple of days, right when it should have been putting out the silks for little ears and stuff like that, it didn't do it. Now, what's the reason? I can't answer that yet because I don't know. Now, we've made a second planting of the Hopi corn. We're going to see how that does. And the only thing that bothers me about that is my sources that I talk to on a regular basis has told me that August may very well be hotter and worse than July was. And guys, with less rain. And if that's the case, we will see how this Hopi corn does, because I planted it pretty close to what their traditions are for planting. And we'll just have to see how it does. Now, I don't know if it's going to make. This is an experiment for me. I said I wasn't going to do much more experimenting, but with weather anomalies changing like they are, normal gardening practices are not working. So I'm having to go back and rethink and relook at historical things where people live in climates that are facing what we're facing now and how they grow things. And I'm having to try to put this thing together and see before it's too late. I don't want to be out here having to have this for food and not having anything to back it up and trying to learn. I want to know now. So with all this being said about food, gardening, and everything like that, guys, today, the one thing I'm seeing is that everybody is looking for an insurance policy. Everybody's looking for some type of insurance. Technically, insurance is not mentioned in the Bible nowhere that I'm aware of. Now, though it does say in the scriptures that, a prudent man or a wise man sees the destruction coming and he makes provisions for it. I get that. And you can make an application to that in a lot of different ways. You could use it for food. You could use it for insurance. You could use it for old age or retirement or, paying yourself out of debt. I mean, you could use it for any way you wanted to. And I think God put it there for that reason. But as far as just insurance in general, insurance has broken our faith down. Insurance has taken the place of a lot of people, has taken the place of faith, to be honest with you. Because people go, oh, I don't worry about it because I got insurance to cover that. Well, what if you didn't have insurance? What would that do to your faith? Would you be, or would your faith be a little bit stronger maybe? Because you'd have to look back and say, man, if this don't work out for me, I'm going to lose out big time. Lord, I need you. I need your help on this. I need you to help me walk me through this. I mean, Lord, please. Stop and think about that. Has insurance robbed us of our faith? Because it seems like now everybody's looking for an insurance policy of some kind to cover everything. Me, the day before my birthday, I was in the hospital for my heart. And this has been going on for 11 years now. Now, I'm a kind of person, I don't believe in insurance. I'm a pay person. If I go in for something, I pay for it. And I've always been that way. But because I don't follow the Babylonian system, they don't want to treat me. Even though I have a perfect pay record on my medical bills and all my bills, I have a perfect pay record, they look at me and tell me, well, we'd rather you had insurance. And I'm like, why? I'm paying you. Well, we don't want people paying us in notes. I'm like, well, why not? Everybody else gets paid in notes. Are you any different? You want all your money in one lump sum? No. I will pay you just like I pay everybody else. You're no different. But because of the Babylonian system, see, they won't treat me. I go in with my knee. I went in with my knee. Just bandage it up, and if it don't get better in a couple of weeks, and come back, and we'll look at it and see if we can't. Here's some pills to take, and it should help with the inflammation. It should help with this and that. And I told myself, I'm not taking no pills. Go in there and look at it and tell me what's wrong, and let's fix it. Oh, wait, no, you don't have insurance. I said, but I pay. Well, we're sorry, Mr. King. We got, you don't have any insurance. Same thing with my heart. Been doing this for 11 years. They will not fix what's wrong with me. Simply because I'm trying to come out from among her, and I'm trying not to be part of the Babylonian system. Not that I don't pay my bills, because I do pay my bills. And they know I pay my bills, because I pay for every visit I go to the doctor. I pay for them. I pay for any tests that they run. I pay for everything. They just don't want to be paid in notes. So everybody's looking for an insurance. Well, let me tell you where I'm going with this. In order to survive, you know why we have to go to doctors and we have to go to hospitals? Because of our food. Because we haven't eaten like we're supposed to eat. Now, there are instances where, like me, I got in a bad car accident, and then I've been hurt on jobs a lot of times because mechanical injuries, things happen. I get those totally. But as far as our health determines on what kind of food we put in our bodies. Now, we got a big laugh out of Miss Wanda this past week. When I was in the emergency room, she had to go to the bathroom, and she would not go back in the hospital because they want us to wear masks. And when she wears a mask, her heart goes crazy. She goes to hyperventilating, and I don't blame her. I kept mine down below my mouth 90% of the time. But she had to go to a Wendy's to use the restroom. And while she was in there, she decided to get her a burger and fries because it was getting close to time for us to eat. She hadn't eaten out, bless her heart, y'all. Miss Wanda and me, either one, we haven't eaten out in I don't know how many years. It's been a long, long time. We don't go to fast food restaurants. We don't do none of that stuff. But she happened to be in Wendy's, and she decided to get her a burger and fries and a drink. And guys, you got to go back and watch the live stream. She explains that the technology just to get a drink, she totally did not get it. The people in there could not believe that she did not know how to operate these machines. I mean, there were computerized machines. You swipe them and touch this and swipe. She didn't know none of this stuff because we don't go to these places. And they were actually kind of cackling at her. Even the people sitting in the seats out there kind of got a little bit amused about it. But she was just like, Deanie, it's a different world. And I told her, I says, baby, it's the new system. We got to get out of this system. We don't need to be a part of this system. So my point being, our food is the reason we're all in doctor's offices. It's the reason it's the reason our health is breaking down. We don't want to admit it, but a lot of it is our food system and this here. Because we've had them since we were kids. We've given to them years. I mean, it's just been a part of our system. And we've all fell prey to it. And guys, the bottom line is this. There are certain foods that you need for surviving. There's actually 5 foods that you need for the proper amount of calories, for the proper amount of protein, and nutrition. And a lot of people go, now wait, when you tell me these things, I'm a diabetic, or I'm this, or I'm that. It's everything has to be put in its proper order. The 5 foods, let me see if I can get them right here. The first one is potatoes. Potatoes is the #1 food. You can live off of potatoes if you did it right. And you go, oh, well, the glycemic index is too high in potatoes. No, it is high. It depends on how you prepare them, and it depends on how much of them you eat and what you eat them with. But you got potatoes, corn, squash. And when I say squash, I'm not talking about these summer squash, these old yellows and zucchinis. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about good old hard-shelled winter squash. Okay? We've got our potatoes, our corn, our squash, and our beans. Now, the problem with beans is most of us try to eat them while they're green. Beans don't really have their nutrition until they get dry. So that's dry beans, guys. And then the last one, to get this one, the last one's not even a vegetable, but it's eggs. And not chicken eggs, but duck eggs. And it's duck eggs are way higher in protein than chicken eggs are. And really and truly a lot better for you. Matter of fact, Wanda and I we're thinking, as bad as I hate ducks, I'm actually considering looking into a particular breed. And I'm not going to tell you what the breed is just yet until I get a little bit more research done on it, because I don't want somebody running out buying a breed of ducks just because they heard me say it. I will tell you this, they start with the letter A. You can look it up. But planting and growing your own food is the key to good health. Now, I get some things are hereditary, some things you're born with, some things you can't do. It's just in your DNA. I mean, you can't help what your parents were. And I get that. I totally do. But guys, let's talk about the planting of some of these things. When you talk about corn, beans, and squash, people go, oh, it's the Three Sisters, you know. Well, the Three Sisters is partially a myth, okay? There's some truth to it. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't jump off and start trying to leave me a comment down here talking about certain things. Listen to this. When you hear talking about the Three Sisters, everybody goes, "Oh, the Native Americans planted the Three Sisters." Well, I've gone back and talked to the Native Americans. I've done research on Native Americans. I've bought their books, and a lot of it's not what we think. Okay. The Three Sisters. The corn, people go, you plant the corn, you plant the beans for nitrogen, and then you plant the squash to run around them and shade the roots so that the ground doesn't dry out. Every one of those things are true, but they're also every one not true. Now, if you plant corn and you plant beans at the same time, the beans will overtake the corn and the corn will never grow. Or it'll grow up and the beans will just wrap it up and strangle it to death. You'll never get an ear off of it. If you do, it'll just be a little tiny thing. Corn is made to grow up and the ears are made to break and fall down and to dry naturally. They're not made to be wrapped up in beans. Now, I talked to my father before he passed away on some of this stuff. Because my father and them, they grew corn and beans together. And based on what my father told me, now I believe my father never lied to me about anything that I'm aware of. But even though what he told me, I still went back and done my own research. Beans do not release their nitrogen until the plants die. So the fact that you plant corn and beans together so that the corn thrives off the nitrogen from the beans is a misconception. It's not true. Because the only time that bean releases its nitrogen is when it's dead. Up until that point, the beans and the corn are both competing for nutrition in the soil and water. And corn requires a lot of nitrogen and a lot of water. So planting beans and corn at the same time, that's not good. That's not good. Well, what about the squash shading the ground? Well, I've ordered books on the Hopi Indians, and I actually go online and do a lot of research into their history and how they plant stuff. And the Hopi Indians did not plant their squash with their corn. They plant their squash separate from their corn. Because it overtakes it. The squash vines will climb up the corn and it'll just tear it down to the ground. So, how do we make all this work? Let's start with the potatoes. Potatoes can be grown in the worst dirt you have, and you can always make a crop of potatoes. Potatoes do not need rich nutrient dirt or soil. Excuse me for those of you who are politically correct. They don't have to have this big wonderful soil to grow potatoes in. Now there is some truth to if you just break up a fresh sodded field, it's got a lot of grass in it, and you plant potatoes in there right behind it, that you might have a problem with wireworms, because grass has wireworms in it and they will riddle your potatoes. Or if your soil is too rich and it's too alkaline, you can get your potatoes can become scalded. In other words, they don't do good in alkaline soils. Potatoes need an acidic soil. So really and truly, once you plant corn and the corn comes out, the next year, that's really a pretty decent place to plant some potatoes. And potatoes usually grow with very little maintenance whatsoever. Or you can put them in buckets, you can put them in grow bags, you can put them in raised beds. I mean, guys, potatoes can be grown anywhere under almost any condition, whether it's, they do better in cool weather. Now don't go out planting them in the heat of the summer, because potatoes are not designed for the heat of the summer. They can actually take some pretty cold weather and still produce just fine. As a matter of fact, if you go back and study the people of Ireland, you'll see that about 85 to 90% of their diet consisted of potatoes, because they knew how to use the potato. You can't just go out here. I mean, certain varieties of potatoes are better for mashed potatoes. Certain varieties of potatoes are better for potato salad. Certain varieties are better for baking. You need to do your research and figure out which variety is best for which. Some are better for storing than others are storing. There's a procedure that needs to be gone through when storing potatoes. If a potato has any green on it whatsoever, in the solarian or solanine, or what's the actual words? Glycanoids. There's two different glycanoids in potatoes. If that potato has any green on it anywhere, throw the whole potato away. People go, well, I cut the peeling off because it's green. No, the glycanoids go all the way through the whole potato. The whole potato is poisonous. You need to just throw it away. Get rid of it. Because it's not really usable. Any potato that's been exposed to the sun for more than 1 to 2 days and not kept in proper storage really isn't fit to eat. Now, I'm just being honest with you guys. I'm telling you the cold, hard truth. Potatoes are not designed. Now, when I'm not talking about potatoes, I'm not talking about sweet potatoes, because sweet potatoes is not actually a potato. It's in the morning glory family. I'm talking about what we call Irish potatoes, or russets, or Yukon Golds, or whatever. They're not made to be set out in the sun. The proper way to harvest a potato is to go through and cut all the plants in your area out, get rid of the plants because they harbor disease, take them, burn them, throw them away, put them in the garbage, do whatever you want to do. Don't compost them. And wait 2 weeks and then dig your potatoes. Because then the potatoes go through a change underground that causes the skins to toughen up on them where they store better. And it has a lot to do with the starches and stuff. I'm not going to go into all the scientific backgrounds of it. You can do your own research on that. And I usually don't harvest mine that way because I use them up pretty quickly because we would can them and everything pretty quick. But I'm beginning to see the importance of doing it that way because of a long-term storage now. Being as we might be facing brownouts and, no electrical, because let me throw this in while I'm talking about the vegetables. The possibility in the near future for 30 to 70 day periods of no electricity is going to become a real big reality. Okay? Just throw that in there. Keep that in the back of your mind. Now, when it comes to the corn is a heavy nitrogen feeder. Now, corn needs good soil to grow in. It needs good nutrient-dense soil for it to produce well. And it needs lots of water to be able to produce well. So corn technically should be grown by itself until it reaches a particular stage. Once the ears have formed, and they're probably beyond the milk stage, let's say, then you can plant beans down there. Now, the fact that corns live off of the nitrogen from the beans, that is never going to happen the way it should happen, the way that people say it happens. Because beans don't give off their nitrogen until they die. And you're not going to plant your beans until your corn is done through its growing period. So wait till your corn has done tousled out, the tossels have turned brown, then plant your beans. Then by the time the beans come up and they begin to run up the stalk, the corn will have done broken and fallen down, and the beans can go up at the end, and you don't have any problem with losing your corn. And your corn's not pulling anything away from your beans. Your beans have a pole to run up on so that they're doing, you don't have to go through trellising them everywhere. Your winter squash should always be planted by themselves because they are very invasive. I've got one planted right back here that's called an above ground sweet potato. It's a Thelma Anders. I planted it way back in the spring. They almost died through the drought. Now they bloomed immediately and put on a few little squash, and they were little. And then the plants, over half of them died in the drought. But 3 or 4 of them pulled through, and now, I don't know, you probably can't see them in the background here because the flag's in the way, but they have taken over where my old pig pen was. They've taken the whole place over. They're growing all out in the woods. They're growing on the fences. I mean, they're just growing everywhere. They don't have a bloom on them. Go figure. Has something to do with the heat, I'm guessing. But they're covering up that whole area back there. Now, our Cherokee Tans did that a year ago. When we had big trash piles out here behind the smokehouse, before we put the barn in, we planted them around the edges of the trash piles. And they came up and the vines covered the trash piles, ran all out, and they ran everywhere. 30 feet out there in all directions, had no blooms on them, and then right at the end, they started putting blooms on, and they had Cherokee pumpkins on them before the frost came. So we don't ever plant more than one variety of winter squash at one time because we don't want any cross-pollination. So this year we didn't plant any Cherokee Tans because we still have a bunch of seeds. We planted the Thelma Anders hoping to be able to get an above ground sweet potato out of them, which is nothing more than a winter squash. You don't have to leave me a comment telling me, oh, that's a winter squash, Jenny, that's not a sweet potato. I'm very much aware of that. It's just called an above ground sweet potato because it tastes like a sweet potato. It's actually an acorn type squash. So guys, I hope that the way I'm explaining this will help you to understand the best insurance policy you can get in the times that we're going into is not a physical insurance policy, but it's one that you grow. Think about the 5 food groups, and people's going to go, yeah, but what about tomatoes and what about pepper? You will not survive on them, I promise you. Lettuce, you can only eat so many salads, and you're not going to survive on a salad because it doesn't have enough nutrients in it. When the grid goes down, or when an LCE happens, and any of these life-changing events take place, your body's going to need all the calories, it's going to need all the proteins, and everything that it can get in the proper order in order for you to be able to survive and be healthy. Our forefathers knew this. They didn't have insurances. They didn't have all these kind of stuff. They lived, they were healthy, they were very strong. They got out and worked the fields all day long till most of them were up in their 80s and 90s. And guys, please grow your own food. Let that be your new insurance policy. Healthy food in the near future is going to be non-existent. Please listen to what I'm telling you. I'm not trying to be a fearmonger. I'm not trying to be scare tactics. I'm just trying to be honest with you. The food that you're going to be getting, the foods you already get, is from a year to a year and a half ago. There's food shortages. It just ain't made it to the shelf yet. It's coming, guys. It's going to happen. There's no way that it cannot happen. And I'm just begging and pleading with everybody, find a way to grow the 5 food groups I just told you. And I know all of you can't have ducks or chickens or whatever for eggs, but do yourself a favor. Buy powdered eggs. You can go to My Patriot Supply. We have a link down below. They've got very healthy powdered eggs that's been freeze-dried that you can get and store them things up for your egg protein. I mean, we've bought powdered honey. We've bought powdered peanut butter. We've done powdered eggs because we have our own freeze jar. We don't have to buy those. We actually just have our own freeze jar. Guys, even though I raise all my own food, I still purchase some things from My Patriot Supply. They have a pitcher water system that purifies your water, comes with a filter. Guys, we just bought 2 of them. We bought one for the house, we bought one for the cabin, and we bought extra filters to go with them. And people go, yeah, but it's so expensive. What price can you put on your health? When you're sitting there and you have no healthy water to drink, the number one killer of people during a grid down situation is water and waterborne illnesses. When you have no fresh water to drink, no clean water, what is it worth to you then? See, I had a very rich person years ago explain something to me. And I've told y'all about this on Porch Time before. I always sit back and said, man, I never could afford a quad cab 4-wheel drive truck, you know. And I was talking to this gentleman, and this guy who was very wealthy was over to the side. He walked over to me. He said, why can't you? I said, well, I don't make enough money to afford one. He said, what do you drive now? I said, I just drive a regular single cab 4-wheel drive truck. He said, so a few thousand more dollars is going to break you? And I said, yeah. I said, man, they want like $5,000 more for that truck if I add an extra cab on it. That was then at that period of time. And he said, you waste more than that every month. What that note will cost you by buying a soft drink or a cup of coffee or a biscuit or whatever. He said, you can afford what you want to afford. He said, it's a psychological issue with you if you think you can't afford that. And I said, no, it's easy if you coming from a wealthy person because you got extra money to burn. And he said, no, I don't. He said, the only reason I'm wealthy is because I made wise decisions when I was younger. He said, if you'll go online and build that vehicle online and order it and get what you want, he said, I tell you what, he said, you go buy that truck, and if you can't afford it, I'm needing a new truck. He said, I'll take it off your hands. So I went online and I built the truck I wanted, and I ordered it, and they shipped it to a place way away from here, but that company agreed to bring it to me. And guys, I'm still driving that truck. Matter of fact, I bought 2 of them. I'm still driving that truck today. Now, I sold one of them, not to that gentleman, but I just sold it. But I still have one of them here. It's a 2006 quad cab 4-wheel drive Ford. Big Triton V8 engine in it. I mean, the chrome edition, everything I wanted, electronic, everything is still going strong today. And I paid for it. Just like the man said, it was about priorities and about me putting my finances in order. And ever since then, I've learned a valuable lesson. We afford what we want to afford. And people go, well, I don't know. I live on a limited income, and my mom and dad lived on a limited income. And I totally get that. They never made any provisions for the future whatsoever. They depended on Social Security, which is a joke. And I watched them struggle. But at the same time, if they wanted something, they found a way to get it. I mean, stop and think about that. People say, well, I'm taking a vacation this year. Well, how is that possible? If you don't have any money, how can you take a vacation? I mean, stop and think about this. We're going to the movies this weekend. How is that possible if you don't have any money? I mean, stop and think about this. Well, I'm going to see my grandkids this weekend. Wait a minute. How is that possible if you don't have any money for your own future? It's about putting things in their proper order. And I used to teach his courses. He's a really good man, really good guy. That's Dave Ramsey. I used to teach his courses to church groups and different other organizations. And, you know, I like Dave Ramsey's. If you got to know Dave's history, Dave's a great guy, really good guy. You got to know his history, how he was very wealthy up front, and he's got a video out. I'm trying to think of the name of that video. Something to do, I wish somebody told me this before I was 60 years old or something like that. I forget how it was. You know, what I should have learned before I was 60 or something to this nature. You'll find it if you go look for it. But he explains a lot of stuff in that that's really good financial advice. Because in there he'll tell you, he said, I did the unthinkable. I've done the unthinkable. Dave says, I did what the Bible said. And it worked. And now I'm making a living off of it. I'm making a living off of God's Word by doing what God's Word said. You gotta love that, guys. I mean, you gotta love it. And the bottom line is this. Guys, the insurance that we need for ourselves is to raise 5 nutrient-dense foods. Now everybody goes, well, corn's not nutrient-dense. Corn is just like potatoes. Potatoes can be used for anything. You can make it, there's thousands of dishes out there that can be made with potatoes. There is literally thousands of uses for corn. If you don't believe me, go to the grocery store right now, pick up anything in that grocery store, and look on the ingredients on the package. I'm giving you a challenge. Go to the grocery store, pick up anything in that grocery store, and look on the back of it, and see if it doesn't have modified food starch, high fructose corn syrup, corn solids of some kind. Just corn is in everything. Corn has uses for, they make fuel out of it. It's for animal feed. You can make polenta, grits, cornmeal, corn flour. I mean, everything can be made with corn. Squash is loaded with the carotenes and all the different, I mean, depending on which squash you grow, they're loaded with, I mean, just nutrient-dense foods. And they have a long shelf life because they have a hard shell on the outside of them. Corn can be dried. Corn can be ground. Now, I don't say that you should grind corn immediately. I store mine in the deep freeze after it's shelled off of the cob. I grind mine when I need it. Now I'm still waiting on a mill from Justin so I can have stone ground. Right now mine is done with hammer mill. Mine's like a hammer mill type. And I do have the hand burr, steel burr hand grinding one. But I'm waiting for the stone ground if I can get that one from Justin. I'm on his list. And guys, corn can be used for multiple different things. Squash can be used for multiple things. Potatoes can be used for multiple things. Beans can be, they're very protein dense vegetables, and they can be ground into flour just like corn or wheat or anything else. And guys, I'm telling you, think about these in the duck eggs. Think about the protein and the calories that you're going to need when the grid goes down, or when an LCE happens and we can't get any food and we're put in rations and all this kind of stuff. Think about this kind of stuff in order to keep your health up, guys. Let your food be your insurance policies. Thank you, guys, from Deep South Homestead. Guys, I want to take this opportunity also to thank each and every one of you for wishing me a happy birthday. I'm 62 years old. And for the live stream the other night, for everyone pitching in and trying to make it a happy time for me, because I had just gotten out of the ER room and I had a tough week. July is a tough month for me. It's a love-hate relationship with me with July. My birthday is in July, which was Sunday of this past week. Wanda and I got married in July. The fact that we got married in July is the highlight of July for me. Now, my birthday doesn't mean anything to me. It never has, and birthdays don't mean anything to me. But the part of July that gives me the most problems is my former wife passed away on July the 27th. Just 3 days after my birthday. And so July is a love-hate relationship with me. I hate that I went through what I did on July the 27th, but I love that Wanda and I got married on the 19th. And she's the love of my life right now. And without her, I would be lost. You know, I mean, she is like my, I don't know what you would, I don't even have words to describe how much I appreciate her as an individual and as a wife. She's the love of my life and the joy of my life right now. And I try to do everything I do for her because I want her to have the best that life has to offer. And as a husband, I think that's my responsibility, is to do that. And I just want her to have that. I want her to be as comfortable as she can be, and whatever she wants, I want her to have it. And her dream, when we married, she told me she always wanted a place she could walk around on and have fruit trees everywhere and a pond and, you know, a pier and, you know, food growing everywhere and all this kind of stuff. And guys, that's been my dream, is to try to make that happen for her. So July has been a rough month for me. And I want to take the opportunity to thank each and every one of you on the live stream the other night for doing your best to make me laugh. Thank you for the jokes. Thank you for everything that you've done, and the birthday wishes and all this kind of stuff. And guys, I just want you to know I love you, and I really appreciate each and every one of you.